let's do some more rationalizing the denominator. So when we have 3 over the square root of 5, we're going to need to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same square root. That square root is going to be the square root of 5. When we multiply those two together in the numerator, 3 times the square root of 5 is 3 square root of 5. But in the denominator, square root of 5 times square root of 5 is square root of 25. Simplifying that denominator, the numerator will stay the same, and the denominator, square root of 25, will turn into 5. If we have a square root in both the numerator and denominator, it's a good idea to divide first if you can. And the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 6 is the same as the square root of 2 divided by 6, which is 1/3. Now, take the square root of each part. The square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 3 is the square root of 3. Again, we need to rationalize the denominator, so we'll multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same square root, that root being the square root of 3. That's because when we multiply, we'll have square root of 3 in the numerator, but in the denominator, it'll be the square root of 3 squared. Square root and the square cancel, and that'll leave us with the square root of 3 over 3. That's an important distinction to make about the denominator, that we needed to get the square root of 3 squared, because now when we're dealing with 3 over the cubed root of 5, we're going to have to multiply by another cubed root. And again, I'm going to need enough 5's down there to cancel with the cubed root. So that means I need to multiply by cubed root of 5 squared. In the numerator, that will simplify to 3 times the cubed root of 25. But in the denominator, we'll have the cubed root of, there's 1 5, and 2 more makes 5 cubed. Cubed and the cubed root cancel, and that will simplify to 3 cubed root of 25 over 5. It's slightly different in the next one. What's important to recognize is that when we're multiplying by our cubed root, the cubed root of 25, this is already 5 squared, so I only need one more 5. When we do that multiplication, we'll have 3 times the cubed root of 5 over the cubed root of our 5 cubed. Notice it's 5 cubed, not 25 cubed. When we simplify that, our denominator will just be 5. For these last two fractions, we still have radicals in the denominator, but I can't just take and multiply by the square root of 2 in the first one, because then the denominator would be 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 2 times square root of 2. It doesn't get rid of any of the roots. In order to get rid of the roots, what I'm going to have to multiply by is the conjugate. And since the denominator here is 2 minus square root of 2, I'm going to multiply by 2 plus square root of 2. And do the same thing in the numerator and denominator. In the numerator, I'm going to have to FOIL. 4 times 2 is 8, plus outsides will be 4 root 2, the insides will be 2 root 2, and the last will be square root of 2 times square root of 2 is the square root of 4. In the denominator, you can FOIL that as well. First, 2 times 2 is 4. Outsides will give us 2 square root of 2, and then the insides will give us minus 2 square root of 2, and the last will give us minus the square root of 4. This was the whole reason that we multiply by the conjugate, is it will have this plus root 2 and minus root 2, and that will cancel. Anyway, simplifying the numerator, we'll have 8 plus the square root of 4, which is 2. 8 plus 2 is 10. Next, with the two radicals, 4 root 2 plus 2 root 2 leaves us with 6 square root of 2's. In the denominator, all I'm left with is this 4 and minus the square root of 4. So 4 minus 2 is 2. Lastly, we have to divide each term by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 6 divided by 2 leaves us with 3 square root of 2. In the next one, we have to do the same thing, multiply by the conjugate. Since the denominator is 3 plus root 5, the conjugate is going to be 3 minus the square root of 5. So we multiply the numerator and the denominator by that 3 minus square root of 5. It's kind of nice for us in the numerator because all we have to do is distribute instead of FOILing. 6 times 3 is 18, minus 6 square root of 5. In the denominator, we already know what's going to happen with those two middle terms. They're going to cancel. So all I have to do is multiply the firsts together. 3 times 3 is 9. And the lasts together. Plus root 5 times minus root 5 is minus square root of 25. Now we just simplify. The numerator is going to stay the same as 18 minus 6 square root of 5. But in the denominator, we'll have 9 minus 5, which is 4. We can break that up into two fractions, 18 over 4, minus 6 square root of 5 over 4, and then cancel the common factors. 18 fourths is the same as 9 halves, and 6 over 4 is the same as 3 over 2, so this will be 3 square root of 5 over 2.